The knife was still warm in her hand when she heard the footsteps stop outside the kitchen door. Maya did not turn around. She had learned that much in this house. You do not turn around fast. You do not let them see the fear move across your face. You keep your eyes on the board, on the onion falling apart under the blade in clean white half moons, and you breathe like a woman who has nothing to hide. Behind her, the footsteps did not come closer. They did not leave either. They just waited in the dark of the hallway, the way a thing waits when it has all the time in the world and you do not. On the stove, the broth had gone still. No bouble, no steam, just a flat gray surface holding the light of the one bulb she was allowed to keep on after midnight. And in that surface, warped and small, she could see the doorway behind her. She could see the shape standing in it. She could see that it was not moving. 3 months ago, her sister had stood in this exact kitchen, at this exact hour, cooking for the exact same man. 3 months ago, her sister had sent one last message. At 12:14 in the morning, 6 words that Maya had read so many times the letters had stopped meaning anything. He's not who they say he is. And then nothing. Not a call. Not a body. Not a grave. Just a family who said, so politely, so gently, that Nia had decided the work was not for her and gone home. Gone home. Nia, who had no home but Maya. Nia, who had taken this job so that Maya could finish school, who had kissed her forehead at the bus station and said, I'll be fine. I'm just cooking dinner for rich people. What's the worst that happens? Maya set the knife down. Quietly. She wiped her hands on the apron that still smelled faintly of another woman's perfume. Because it had been another woman's apron, because they had handed her a dead woman's things and called it a uniform. And she wondered, not for the first time, whether she was standing in the last place her sister had ever stood alive. The footsteps in the hallway moved. 1 step. 2. Coming toward the kitchen now, slow, unhurried, and Maya reached for the knife again without turning, and a voice she did not know said, very softly, from very close behind her, You shouldn't be awake at this hour. A pause. The last one wasn't either. If your heart just skipped, stay with me. This is Afro-K Timeless Stories, and my name matters less than hers does. And by the end of this story, you will understand why she walked into that house knowing it might swallow her whole. If you're new here, subscribe, because we tell the kind of stories that follow you home and sit at the foot of your bed. Now, come back into that kitchen with me. The knife is still in her hand, and the man in the doorway is still watching. Let me take you back 6 days to the morning Maya Ellis stopped being Maya Ellis. She stood in a gas station bathroom an hour outside the city, looking at a face in the mirror that she needed to make forgettable. She pulled her hair back plain. She took off the small gold hoop earrings her sister had given her and zipped them into an inside pocket, because a woman named Maya Brooks would not own anything her sister had touched. She practiced the story until it stopped feeling like a lie in her mouth. Culinary school in Atlanta. 2 years at a hotel restaurant that had conveniently closed. References from a chef who did not exist. Backed by a phone number that rang to a burner in her bag. Maya Brooks, 26, looking for live-in work. No family to speak of. That last part was the only true thing on the whole application now. She had spent a month building this. A month of calling every staffing agency that placed private cooks with wealthy families, until one of them, a tired woman who did not ask enough questions, mentioned a house that was hiring again. A quiet family, very private, very particular. They went through cooks, the woman said, the way some people go through umbrellas. They went through cooks. Maya had held the phone very still and asked, as lightly as she could, what happened to the last one. Oh, the woman said. She just didn't work out. Neither did the one before her, Maya thought. Neither did my sister. But she said, brightly, that she was very particular too, and that she would love an interview. And 6 days later, a black car with tinted windows met her at a train station she had never heard of and drove her up a road that climbed and climbed until the city fell away behind them, and there was nothing but trees and a high stone wall and a gate that opened by itself. The house sat at the top like something that had been watching the road for 100 years. The man who met her at the door was not the cold Korean Mafia boss. Not yet. That morning it was an old man, small and soft in a gray cardigan, with reading glasses pushed up into white hair and a smile so warm it reached all the way into his eyes. He took her hand in both of his and held it a moment longer than a stranger should, and he looked at her like she was something he had been waiting for. "You must be Maya," he said. "I am Mr. Baek. Come in, come in. You must be tired from the road. I made tea." He had made tea for a cook coming to interview. He poured it himself, his hands very steady for an old man. And he asked her about her mother's cooking, not her training, her mother's. And when she told him about the collard greens and the cornbread and the way her mother made everyone at the table go quiet on the first bite, his eyes went wet at the corners, and he said, softly, that a house could starve for that kind of cooking. That this house had been starving a long time. Maya would remember that later. Every word of it. She would take it out and turn it over and feel sick. But that morning, Mr. Baek was the kindest thing she had felt in 3 months, and she was so tired, and she let herself be warmed. He walked her through the house himself. It was beautiful and it was wrong, both at once, the way a museum is wrong to live in. Long halls with soft carpet that ate the sound of your feet. Rooms with no clutter, no photographs, nothing that said a person had ever been happy in them. Men in dark clothes who stood very still in corners and did not look at her and somehow saw everything. And at the center of it, the kitchen, enormous, gleaming, cold, with knives on a magnetic strip like teeth in a mouth. "The cook lives here," Mr. Baek said, opening a door off the kitchen into a small clean room. A bed, a dresser, a window with a view of the wall. There were still things in the dresser. Maya saw in the half-second before Mr. Baek stepped in front of the drawer and slid it shut with his knee, smooth, casual, still talking. A corner of fabric, a hairbrush, a phone charger coiled on the dresser top, the kind you do not leave behind, because everyone needs their charger, everyone. You would go back for your charger. "We'll have this cleared for you by tonight," he said warmly. The last girl left in a hurry. Young people, no paciencia. The last girl, left in a hurry, left her charger, left her hairbrush, left, Maya thought, everything a person owns. She smiled and said that was no trouble at all. And somewhere above them in the great silent house, a floorboard shifted under a weight, and Maya looked up at the ceiling, and Mr. Baek looked up too, and for just one beat the warmth went out of his face like a light switched off, and something else looked out of his eyes, cold and quick and gone before she could name it. "That," he said, the smile sliding back into place, "is Mr. Seo. You'll meet him at dinner." He patted her hand. "Cook well, daughter. It matters more than you know. Cook well. It matters more than you know." She did not know, yet, that it was the truest warning she would ever be given, and that the man who gave it was the reason she would need it. That night, she cooked her first dinner for the cold Korean Mafia boss, and he sent every plate back untouched. She did not meet him. That was the first strange thing. The food went up on a cart, pushed by a silent young man in dark clothes, and it came back down 20 minutes later exactly as it had gone up, cold now, congealing, not a fork mark in any of it. The young man set the cart down without a word and turned to leave, and Maya, who had spent 4 hours on that meal, who had put her mother's hands into that meal, heard herself say, "Was something wrong with it?" The young man stopped. He looked at her for the first time. He was maybe her age, sharp-faced, careful, with the flat, still eyes of someone who had learned young not to show anything. This was Ji-woo, though she did not know his name yet. She only knew that he looked at her a beat too long, the way you look at something you are sorry for. Nothing was wrong with it, he said. Then why? He doesn't eat what the cook makes. Ji-woo picked the cart back up. Not at first. Not for a while. A pause, and something almost like a warning under the flat voice. Don't take it personal, and don't try too hard to change it. He left, and Maya stood alone in the enormous kitchen at 10 at night, scraping 4 hours of her mother's cooking into the bin, as she thought about her sister sending a message at 12:14 in the morning, and she understood, cold in her stomach, that Nia had stood exactly here, scraping exactly this, learning exactly this. He doesn't eat what the cook makes. For a while. Until when? Over the next days, she built her picture of the house the way you build a case, quietly, without letting anyone see you counting. She learned the rhythms. The men who came and went at odd hours. The room she was not to enter, marked by nothing but a look for Mr. Baek if her feet carried her too near. She learned that the housekeeper, Mrs. Han, a thin, nervous woman who had been in the house longer than anyone, would talk about anything except the cooks who had come before, and that if you said the word cook near her, her hands found each other and held on. And she learned the man upstairs. She learned him the way you learn weather. Dae-hyun Seo moved through his own house like cold air. When he passed through a room, men who had been talking stopped talking. He was not large. He did not raise his voice. He did not need to. He had a stillness that made the air around him feel thin, and eyes so dark and so tired that the one time they landed on her, in a hallway, by accident, Maya felt them go through her like a draft through a door and forgot, for a second, the whole story she had built. He looked at her. He did not nod. He did not speak. His eyes moved over her face, and there was something in them she had not expected and could not use, because she had come here certain of what she would find in this man's face, and cruelty was what she had prepared for. And this was not cruelty. It was grief. Old grief, worn smooth. The grief of a man looking at one more person he already knew he would lose. Then he was gone down the hall, and Ji-woo detached himself from a doorway and followed him. And Maya stood there with her heart going too fast and told herself that killers can look sad, that the saddest-looking men in the world have done the worst things, that she had not come here to feel sorry for the man who took her sister. But she started cooking differently after that, not to please him. That was what she told herself. She started cooking to reach him, to crack him open and see what was inside, because whatever had happened to Nia, this man knew it. This man was the center of it. And Maya was going to get close enough to that center to find the truth, even if she had to feed it out of him one plate at a time. She stopped cooking to impress and started cooking to remember. She made the food of comfort, the food of people who have lost someone, because she had lost someone and she knew what that food tasted like. Rice porridge, soft and plain, the kind you make for the sick. Soup you could taste your grandmother in. She sent up small things. Nothing showy. Things that asked for nothing. For 6 days the plates came back untouched. On the 7th day, the porridge came back with a spoon in it. Used. Half the bowl gone. Maya stood holding that bowl for a long time. 1 spoonful gone from a bowl of plain rice porridge, and her hands were shaking, and she did not fully understand why. She told herself it was because she was in, because the wall had a crack in it now, and she could work the crack. That was all it was. That was the plan. She did not let herself think about the other thing, the small, warm traitor thought that had nothing to do with the plan, the thought that said, he was hungry, and I fed him, and no one has fed that man in a long, long time. Upstairs, unseen, Dae-hyun Seo set the empty spoon down beside the bowl and sat very still, and thought a thought that would have stopped Maya's heart if she could have heard it. She cooks like the last one, he thought. God help her. She cooks exactly like the last one. And he called for Ji-woo, and he said, in a voice with no heat in it at all, watch the new cook closely. Do not let her out of your sight after dark. Ji-woo bowed and left to do it. And Maya, downstairs, felt the eyes come back onto her that night as she worked, the young enforcer in the doorway again, always in the doorway, watching her hands, watching her leave, and she thought, they know, or they suspect. They put my jailer on me. She had it exactly backward. But she would not learn that for a long time, and by then it would nearly be too late. The crack in the wall widened one plate at a time. He ate the porridge, then he ate the soup, then, one evening, the cart came back with a note on it. Not signed. 2 words in a hard slanted hand. More salt. Maya laughed out loud, alone in the kitchen, a startled laugh that surprised her. More salt. The cold Korean Mafia boss, the man who ran through cooks like umbrellas, the center of whatever had swallowed her sister, had sent her a note asking for more salt like any man at any table anywhere. She salted the next night's soup. The note that came back said only better. She should have hated how that landed in her chest. She did not have time to hate it, because that was the same night she found a room. She had been mapping the house for a week, learning which doors Mr. Baek's eyes warned her from. And there was one at the end of a hall on the 2nd floor that no one seemed to use. And that night, with the house asleep and Ji-woo, for once, called away, she tried the handle and it turned. It was an office. Old. Disused. A desk. A lamp she did not dare turn on. Filing drawers. She worked by the light of her phone, hand cupped over it, heart in her throat, and she opened the drawers one by one until she found the folder. Staff. Years of it. And in the staff folder, cooks. Photographs clipped to pages. Young women, mostly one after another, and beside each one a start date, and in the same hard slanted hand that had asked her for more salt, an end date. Just a date. No reason. No forwarding address. A start and an end, like the man was keeping a private calendar of arrivals and departures that no one was ever meant to read. She counted 11. 11 cooks in 4 years. 11 start dates and 11 end dates, and she turned the pages faster now, her breath loud in the dark room, until she reached the second-to-last page, and the photograph clipped to it was her sister. Nia, smiling the careful smile she used for strangers. A start date 3 months ago, and an end date 2 weeks after it. Maya sat down on the floor of that dark office with her sister's face in her shaking hands and did not breathe. An end date. 2 weeks. 2 weeks after Nia walked through that gate, somebody had written the day her sister ended, in the same hand that had asked Maya for more salt. And Maya understood, finally and completely and far too late to run, exactly what job she had taken. The last one wasn't awake at this hour either. The last girl left in a hurry. They went through cooks the way some people go through umbrellas. They were not firing cooks. They were burying them. And she was number 12. Something moved in the hall. Maya killed the phone light and went still on the floor, folder against her chest, and through the crack of the door she saw feet pass, slow, unhurried, and a voice she now knew as well as her own heartbeat said softly to someone unseen, "She's been in the house 11 days. That's longer than most." A pause. Keep her close. It would be a shame to lose this one too soon. Mr. Baek. Warm, kind Mr. Baek, who made tea, who called her daughter, saying it would be a shame to lose this one too soon in a voice with no warmth in it at all, and Maya pressed her sister's photograph to her chest in the dark and did not understand, yet what she had heard, filed it under the boss, under Dae-hyun, under the man with the grief in his eyes and the salt on his tongue. Because that was the story she had come here with, and she was not ready yet to see that the story was wrong. She got out. She put the folder back. She lay awake all night with her sister's end date burned behind her eyes, and she made herself a promise. She would find where they put her. She would find what was left of Nia, and she would carry it out of this house, and she would make the man responsible pay for it if it was the last thing she did. And some nights, she thought it very well might be. She did not know she had the wrong man. The next morning, Mr. Baek found her in the kitchen and set a small paper bag on the counter beside her. Warm. It smelled of red bean and sugar. "You're too thin," he said gently. "You cook for a house full of men and you forget to feed yourself. Eat, daughter." He watched her until she took a bite. He seemed to need to see her eat. "There. Now, I want to tell you something, and I want you to listen to an old man who has buried more people than he can count." Maya's stomach turned over. She kept chewing. "This is not a safe house," Baek said, still gently, still kind. "You have seen the men. You have felt the cold. Mr. Seo is not a well man in his heart, and the people around him are worse. I have watched cooks come into this house bright as morning, and I have watched what happens to them." His old eyes filled. "I cannot save the others. I tell myself it was not my place. But you," he touched her cheek once softly, "you remind me of someone. So I'm going to break my own rule, and I am going to look after you. Whatever happens in this house, you come to me. Only me. Do you understand? Not the men. Not Jiwoo. Not Mr. Seo. Whatever kindness he shows you. You come to me." And Maya, with her sister's end date still fresh behind her eyes, with the memory of a cold voice in a dark hall not yet connected to this warm one in front of her, felt her throat close with something that had been starved in her for 3 months. Someone was offering to protect her. "Thank you," she whispered. "Good girl," said the hunter, and smiled, and patted her hand, and went to arrange her death. Pause with me a second. If your heart is pounding, if you already suspect more than Maya does, subscribe, because you and I are about to go somewhere that is going to hurt. Share this with someone who lives for a story that keeps them guessing, a sister, a best friend, the person you text at midnight. And do me one favor. Type, "I didn't see that coming" in the comments right now, because you are about to say it out loud, and I want to see the exact moment it happens for you. You've stayed this long. You're clearly one of us. Thank you for that. Now hold my hand. Here's where the floor moves. It happened over a shared meal, which was the cruelest possible way for it to happen. Dae-hyun Seo asked the cook to eat with him. The order came down through Jiwoo, flat and strange. "Mr. Seo wishes the cook to bring 2 settings tonight." Maya stood holding the words like they might be a trap, because of course they were a trap. Everything in this house was a trap, and she carried 2 settings up the long silent stairs to a dining room she had never entered. And there he sat at the head of a table built for 20, the cold Korean Mafia boss, alone. He gestured to the chair beside him. Not across. Beside. "You cook for me every night," he said. His English was quiet, exact, accented soft. "I have never seen you eat. A cook who does not eat her own food is hiding something. So, tonight you eat." Maya sat. Her heart was a fist. This was it. This was where she got close. This was the center. And she had rehearsed 100 versions of this moment. And in every one of them, she was the hunter and he was the prey. And instead, she sat down beside a tired man in an empty room. And he served her, himself, spooning food on her plate before his own, an old-fashioned courtesy that undid something in her she could not afford to have undone. They ate. He asked her nothing dangerous. He asked about the food. He asked where she learned to make porridge taste like a person had made it and not a machine. And she told him, carefully half true, about a mother in a small kitchen, and his eyes did the thing again, the grief, the worn smooth grief. And he said, my mother also is the only cooking that means anything, the food that is trying to keep you alive. And then, quietly, not looking at her, he said the thing that broke the story in half. The last cook made porridge like yours, almost exactly like yours. He turned the spoon in his fingers. I have wondered, since you came, if that is a coincidence. I have decided it is not. The room went very cold. Maya set down her fork. Her whole body had gone to ice and fire at once. Here it was. He knew. He had known, maybe from the start, and this was the meal before the end, the last kindness before the dark. And she thought of 11 photographs and 11 end dates, and she thought, wildly, that at least she would know now. At least she would look him in the face when he told her. What did you do to her? Maya said. Her voice did not shake. She was proud, later, that it did not shake. What did you do to Nia Ellis? And the cold Korean Mafia boss flinched. He flinched like she had struck him. The spoon stopped. Something moved across that still face that she had never seen there. And it was not guilt. It was worse than guilt. It was pain, raw and sudden and completely unguarded. The pain of a man who has just heard a name he has been carrying like a stone. Ellis, he said softly. Her name was Ellis. He looked at Maya, and understanding came into his eyes, terrible and gentle. Nia, you are her sister. You have her mouth. I wondered why I could not stop looking at your mouth. What did you do to her? Nothing, he said, and the word was so quiet, so exhausted, so absolutely without defense, that Maya's certainty cracked straight down the middle. I did nothing, Dae-hyun Seo said, because I could do nothing. I have done nothing for 11 of them. Do you understand what I am telling you? I have sat in this house, and I have watched cooks come, and I have watched them die, and every single time I have done nothing, because the moment I let one of them matter to me, the moment I show one flicker of care, that is the moment she is marked. My warmth is the thing that kills them. Do you understand? I sent your sister's food back untouched for 2 weeks to keep her safe, to keep her invisible, to keep her boring and unimportant and alive. His voice broke on the last word, and it did not work. It never works, because it was never me. Maya cannot breathe. Then who? She whispered. Dae-hyun looked at her, and there was such sorrow in his face and such warning, and he opened his mouth to answer, and the dining room door opened. There you are, said Mr. Baek warmly, stepping in, smiling his good, kind smile, his eyes moving once around the room and taking in everything, the 2 settings, the food, the boss leaning toward the cook's stricken face. Am I interrupting? Mr. CEO, you should have told me you wanted company at dinner. I would have arranged it properly. And Maya watched Dae-hyun Seo, the cold Korean Mafia boss, the man the whole world feared, go still and silent and small under the warm gaze of a smiling old man in a gray cardigan. She watched the most frightening man she had ever met become afraid. And the whole story turned over in the air and landed the other way up. It was never him. Every cruelty was a shield. The untouched plates, the cold orders, the distance, the guard he'd posted on her that she'd read as a cage, Ju in every doorway, keeping her in sight, keeping her safe. Dae-hyun had been protecting her from the first plate, badly, hopelessly, the only way a trapped man knows how, by pretending not to care. And the warmth, the tea, the red bean cakes, the hand on her cheek, come to me, only me, not Ju, not Mr. CEO, whatever kindness he shows you, all of it had come from the smiling old man, now standing in the doorway looking at her with eyes she finally saw clearly. Daughter, said Mr. Baek gently, you look pale. Have you eaten something that disagreed with you? Run, Dae-hyun's eyes said, silent, desperate, across the table. Run. She did not run. There was nowhere in that house to run to, and she knew it. Instead, Maya did the hardest thing she had ever done. She picked her fork back up. She made her face into the face of a girl who had heard nothing, understood nothing, a tired cook feeling a little ill at a strange dinner. And she said, "I think I'm just tired, Mr. Baek. It's been a long week." The old man studied her for one long moment. The whole world balanced on it. "Of course," he said finally, warmly, and the danger drew back behind his eyes like a tide going out. "Go and rest, daughter. I'll have Jiwoo see you down." She went, on legs that did not feel like hers, past Jiwoo in the hall, who fell in a step behind her, and she understood now what he was. Not her jailer, her sister's failed guardian, this young man with the flat, careful eyes who had told her don't try too hard to change it, who had looked at her a beat too long the very first night, because he was sorry, because he already knew how this ended, because he had watched it end 11 times. At the bottom of the stairs, out of sight of the dining room, Jiwoo spoke without looking at her, very low, very fast. "You said her name." Maya said nothing. "You should not have said her name in front of him." Jiwoo's jaw was tight. "You have until morning, maybe. He is patient. He will want it to look like the others. An accident. A girl who left in a hurry." He stopped at her door. For the first time his flat face cracked, just slightly, just enough for her to see the boy underneath the enforcer. "I tried to warn her too. Your sister." She wouldn't listen either. He swallowed. "She was kind to me. Nobody in this house is kind to me. She was. Yvol, Maya whispered. Where is she? Where did he put her?" And Jiwoo opened his mouth and closed it, and something crossed his face that she would only understand later. A hesitation, a thing not said, and all he said was, "You don't want to know what's in the ground here." Then he was gone, and Maya was alone in a dead woman's room with a hunter 3 floors up who now knew she knew. She did not sleep. She sat on the floor with her back against the door, and she made herself think coldly, the way her sister had taught her to think when the world was on fire. Baek killed the cooks. Baek had been killing them for years. But why? Why would the family's kind, old consigliere murder 11 cooks one after another? Why would he need to? And the answer came to her slowly, the way the worst answers do, assembled out of a dozen small things she had seen and not understood. The cooks were never the point. Dae-hyun's warmth is what marks them, he'd said. The moment I let one matter to me. Baek was not killing cooks. Baek was killing the one soft thing left in Dae-hyun Seo. Over and over, teaching a powerful man that every gentle feeling he allowed himself would be taken from him. Baek was breaking the boss the way you break an animal, systematically, patiently, isolating him, hollowing him out, killing everyone he might lean on until there was no one left in the whole cold house that Dae-hyun trusted. No one, except the kind old man who was always there to catch him when he fell. The kind old man he had gone small and silent and afraid in front of. The kind old man who, Maya saw now with sickening clarity, did not serve his family at all. He was taking it, death by death, cook by cook. He was hollowing out the throne so he could sit in it, and Dae-hyun Seo, the man the world feared, had been a prisoner in his own house for years, held there by something Maya could not yet see, some leverage, some chain she could not name. She thought she understood everything now. She was wrong about one thing, the biggest thing, and it was the thing that was going to save her sister's life, if only she could live long enough to learn it. Near dawn, exhausted, she finally let herself lie down, and that was when she heard it. Faint, from somewhere below the house, below even the kitchen, carried up through the old pipes and the cold stone the way sound travels in a house built to keep secrets. Singing, a woman's voice, thin and tired and cracked, But a voice Maya would have known at the bottom of the ocean, a voice that had sung her to sleep through every fever of her childhood, a lullaby with words in it that only two people in the whole world knew, because their mother had made them up. Maya stopped breathing. Nia was singing. Nia was alive. Everything she thought she knew turned over one final time, and this time it did not land on horror. It landed on something far more dangerous. Hope. Nia was alive. The end date in the folder was a lie, Baek's lie, written in a hand Maya had assumed was Dae-hyun's and was not, because of course the hunter kept his own quiet calendar. Nia had not been murdered. Nia had been taken, kept, held somewhere below this house, alive, for 3 months, and Maya's grief, the grief that had driven her through a false name and a stolen apron and 11 days of terror. Her grief had been a thing planted in her by a smiling old man who told her he could not save the others. He had not killed her sister. He had done something worse. He had kept her breathing 3 floors down as a chain. And now Maya understood the leverage. Now she understood why the most frightening man she had ever met went small and afraid under Baek's warm gaze. Dae-hyun had not been able to save the cooks because Baek held something over him, and the something was a person, alive, hidden, a life Baek could end with a word if Dae-hyun ever moved against him. Maya did not yet know whose life Dae-hyun thought it was, but she knew now whose life it actually was. It was Nia's. Baek was holding her sister as the chain around the boss's throat, and neither of them, not the boss, not Maya, had known they were both being held by the same rope. She had until morning, Jiwoo said. She had one move, and everything, her life, her sister's life, the life of the sad cold man upstairs, all of it balanced on it. So Maya Ellis did what no one in that house expected the cook to do. She stopped running, and she started cooking. She sent word up through Jiwoo, who she now trusted with her life because he had loved her sister enough to try to warn her. She wished to cook a dinner. A real dinner. A peace offering, she would call it, from the new cook to the household, to show there were no hard feelings about the strange scene at the table. A humble meal to thank Mr. Baek for his kindness to a girl far from home. She would cook for all of them. The boss, the old man, the house. Baek, when a message reached him, smiled his good, kind smile, because of course he did. A frightened girl cooking her way back into safety. He had seen it before. It was almost sweet. He sent his warm reply. He would be honored, daughter. And he thought, the way he had thought 11 times before, that it was always easiest when they made it look like an accident themselves. A dinner. A kitchen. So many sharp and hot and dangerous things in a kitchen. So many ways for a tired girl to have an accident. He thought he was walking her to her death. He did not know he was sitting down at a table set by a woman who had finally seen the whole board, who had spent 3 months learning to hide her true self inside a cover, who had spent 11 days learning every rhythm of this house, and who had, that long sleepless night, learned a one thing that changed everything. That her sister was alive, and that a hostage no one knows you found is not leverage anymore. It is a rescue waiting to happen. Maya cooked all day. She cooked like her mother. She cooked like her life depended on it, because it did. And as she cooked, she prepared the other things, the real ingredients of the evening. Moving through the kitchen, she now knew better than her own hands. She told Jiwoo where the singing came from. She told him what she needed him to do, and when, and she watched the young enforcer who had spent his whole life serving the people who killed the one person kind to him make a choice, and nod once and go to find the door below the kitchen. And she prepared the table, because here was the thing the hunter had never once considered in all his patient years. Everyone in that house had underestimated the cook. Baek had underestimated her from the first cup of tea, called her daughter, called her thin, called her a girl far from home. He had built his whole long plan on the certainty that the cook was the weakest, softest, most disposable thing in the house. She was about to serve him dinner. They gathered at the long table as the light failed. Dae-hyun at the head, silent, his eyes finding Maya's once, full of a warning and a plea she met and held. Baek at his right hand, warm, expansive, complementing the smell from the kitchen. A handful of the dark-clothed men along the walls. And Maya, serving, moving between them with the quiet grace of a cook who knows her place. She served Baek first. An honor. He beamed at it. "You see," he said to the table, to Dae-hyun, spreading his hands, "this is what a house should feel like. Warmth. A good meal. Someone who cares for us." He looked at Maya with all his terrible kindness. "You have made an old man very happy, daughter. Sit with us a moment. You work too hard." "In a moment, Mr. Baek," Maya said gently. "There's one more dish. It's my mother's. I only make it for family." And she went back into the kitchen, and she did not come back with a dish. She came back with her phone, held up, and playing from it, filling the cold, enormous dining room, was a woman's voice. Thin, cracked, tired, singing a lullaby with words in it that only 3 people in the world had ever known. Their mother, who made it up, Nia, who sang it, and Maya, who had recorded it 40 minutes ago, crouched at a door below the kitchen with Jiwoo's arm around a woman too weak to stand. The song filled the room, and Dae-hyun Seo came out of a chair with a sound Maya had never heard a person make, because he knew that voice. He had heard it through the pipes for 3 months and been told it was a ghost, been told the leverage over him was someone else entirely. And Baek, for the first time since Maya had met him, for the first time in perhaps 20 years, lost the smile. The warmth went out of his face like a light switched off, and the thing underneath looked out. "Turn that off," Baek said quietly. "Her name is Nia Ellis," Maya said. Her voice carried. It did not shake. "She's been alive under this house for 3 months." She looked at Dae-hyun. "You told him it was someone else, didn't you? Someone he'd do anything to protect. You've had your hand around this man's throat for years, and the rope was my sister, and he didn't even know her name." She set the phone down on the table, the song still playing, and looked at the old man. "You killed 11 women to make him believe that caring gets people killed. You made him cold so he'd have no one but you. And you kept my sister breathing in the dark as the chain." Her voice dropped. "You call me daughter." The room had gone very still. The dark-clothed men along the walls were not looking at Maya anymore. They were looking at Baek and at their boss, and Maya watched the calculation move through them. The loyalty that Baek had spent years hollowing out shifting on its foundation, because a family of dangerous men can forgive many things, but being played, being made fools of, the boss they served turned into a puppet by the smiling old man at his right hand, that they could not forgive. Baek understood it too. He was too clever not to. He looked around the table at the men whose faces had changed, at Dae-hyun, standing shaking at the head of it, at the young cook who had walked into his house and taken it apart in a single meal, and the old man did the only thing left to him. He reached, fast for his age, into his cardigan. He was reaching for the thing that would end Nia, the word, the signal, the phone, whatever mechanism a careful man keeps to close his hand around hostage's life from anywhere in a house. He never got to use it, because Jiwoo was already in the doorway, where he had always been, in every doorway, watching, and this time he was not watching the cook. And Dae-hyun Seo, unfrozen at last, was already moving, and the men along the walls, their loyalty finally landing on the right side of the long, cold years, were already stepping in. Maya did not watch what they did to Mr. Baek. She was already running for the kitchen, for the door below it, for the thin, cracked voice still singing from the phone on the table, and she took the stairs into the dark 3 at a time, and there, in a small, clean cell that had held her sister for 3 months, sitting on the floor with Jiwoo's coat around her shoulders, too weak to rise, alive, 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 was Nia. Nia looked up. Her eyes found her sister's face, and she smiled the real smile, the one she never used for strangers, and she said, in a voice worn down to almost nothing, "I told you. What's the worst that happens?" Maya went down onto her knees and gathered her sister into her arms and held the moment far longer than a moment, and did not let go. The reckoning came quietly, the way real reckonings do. Mr. Baek faced the thing he had built. A man who spends 20 years teaching others that care is fatal should not be surprised by the coldness that finally comes for him, and the family he tried to steal delivered it, and no one gloated, and it was done. The truth of the 11 came into the light. Their belongings, kept in that little room off the kitchen like grim trophies, were gathered at last, and their families, the ones who could be found, were told what had happened to daughters and sisters who had left in a hurry. It did not bring them back, but it ended the lie that they had simply walked away, and there's a kind of justice in a true story finally being told, even late, even in grief. Jiwoo, who everyone had suspected, the flat-eyed enforcer always in the doorway, was the one who had tried to warn 2 sisters and failed one and saved the other. He did not become someone new, but Nia asked him in the weeks after why he had helped, and he said, "Because you were kind to me, and no one in this house is ever kind to me." And Nia told him that the house was going to be different now, and it was because Dae-hyun Seo was changed, not softened into a fantasy. He was still a hard man from a hard world with a long ledger behind him. But the cold that everyone had feared, the ice that no cook could ever thaw, had never been his nature. It had been a cage a patient man built around him one death at a time. And when the cage came off, what was left was a person who could grieve, who did grieve, for 11 women he had failed to save by pretending not to see them. He carried that now, openly. It made him, for the first time in 20 years, someone you could sit across a table from. He asked the sisters to stay, at first, to let him make it right. And Maya told him, gently, that some things you cannot make right, you can only carry, and that they were going home. But she came back sometimes in the years after. She would climb the road that fell away into trees and past the gate that opened by itself. And she would cook in the enormous kitchen that no longer frightened her. And the man who once sent every plate back untouched would eat every bite and say, quietly, that was the only cooking that meant anything. The food that is trying to keep you alive. And in a small apartment in the city, 2 sisters lived. Nia grew strong again, slowly. Some nights, she woke singing, out of dreams, the lullaby their mother made up, and Maya would come and sit on the edge of the bed until the song ran out, and neither of them would say anything because everything had already been said in a cold dining room with a phone playing on the table. Maya had walked into that house a weapon aimed at the wrong man, carrying a grief that was a lie, certain she had come to avenge a death. She had walked out having freed a captive, exposed a hunter, unfrozen a prisoner in his own house, and carried her sister home in her arms. No chef could please the cold Korean Mafia boss. 11 tried, and 11 were used to break him, and the whole world believed he was the monster at the center of that great stone house. Until a young black woman walked through the gate under a name that was not hers, and looked at the wrong monster long enough to see the right one, and changed it all. So tell me, down in the comments, tell me the exact moment the floor moved for you. Was it the charger left on the dresser? Was it the flinch when she said her sister's name? Was it the singing in the pipes? Tell me who you suspected and when and how you thought it would end, because I promise you someone in the comments saw it coming and someone never did, and I want to read all of it. And if this story sat down at the foot of your bed the way we promised it would, then stay a while with Afro-K Timeless Stories, because we have more, and every one of them keeps this promise. No matter how deep it is buried, no matter how many years it takes, no matter how kind of face that hides it, the truth always finds its way back to the light. It always does. Watch the next one. It's already waiting for you.